The 69th minute is ticking into 70. Richie Reid is strolling out, pops inside to Paddy Deegan. Deegan thinks he has time. He doesn't. Alan Tynan pounces on him, takes it off him, lobs one forward. Michael Carey cuts it out. He thinks Kilkenny have it back. They don't. Noel McGrath is all over him. Andrew Ormond comes steaming in. Hugh Lawler flings himself at the sliotar to bat it away from him. 3 Kilkenny men now standing over the ball. They surely have it right now. They don't. Noel McGrath is enough. Noel McGrath does enough as he dives to the ground, flicks anything on it just to get it out to Jake Morris. Jake Morris tries to break through, but Mikey Butler tackles it off him, and then Oisín O'Donoghue. O'Donoghue the sub, O'Donoghue the teenager, O'Donoghue in the 70th minute, All-Ireland semi-final with the scores level. O'Donoghue surrounded by cats. 2 of them planted on the 13-metre line in front of the keeper. 4 of them are around him, and now David Blanchfield has his arm around him too, but O'Donoghue uses it. He slaloms out, goes in, goes back out. Lawler's behind him, Malloy on his left, Donnelly to his right, and Oisín O'Donoghue asks the greatest question that's ever crossed a sports person's mind. Why not?
Ball forward intended there for Noel McGrath, doesn't get to him, comes back out again once more. Picked up here by Jake Morris, can't hold on to it. Here's an opportunity. Oisín O'Donoghue swings the stick. Oh, what a goal! Oisín O'Donoghue has got a goal for Tipperary in the 70th minute. What a conclusion to this match. What a goal.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, Oisín O'Donoghue backs himself, and better yet, he makes people lose their heads and lose themselves watching that sort of genius, that sort of heroics. Tip FM certainly lost their heads.
Alan Tynan now flicks it in field. Oh, it's just having to make it towards Noel McGrath. He's trying to get onto the breaking ball. It's still there on the edge of the D. It's a real battle for possession. Andrew Ormond trying to get onto it. Here comes Oisín O'Donoghue. He's outside the 21. He's won a free shoot for goal. Goal! 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 Oisín O'Donoghue has done it again with the best goal he's probably ever scored. Into the top corner. Incredible. 420 to 29 points. The kid from Cahill has done it again. He has done it again. And now Tipperary lead.
And they weren't the only ones, because I'm joined by Colm Keys, who was at Croke Park.
Hey, Conan, I'm just wondering, are you sure that's not Rio de Janeiro FM that you've just put on there?
And I'm joined by somebody else who was at Croke Park watching 14-man Tipperary book their place in the All-Ireland final against Cork. It's John Milan, who was last heard on RTE Radio. One last clip, John.
Oh my God! Of the ages, a goal to win an All-Ireland final place. My word! You've been at Croke Park, John Milan. This is incredible, incredible. 14-man Tipperary. Bounty! It was Noel McGrath got it. The depths of flicks, and it was Oisín O'Donoghue. I say he's going for the point. He backs himself top corner. Oh my word! What an incredible goal by Oisín O'Donoghue, and what an incredible finish to this match.
Absolutely magic. How is your voice today, John Milan?
Yeah, I'm after coming now. I'll tell you now, it's the equivalent now of having an unbelievable night out, all right, and you don't want the night out to end, and then you wake up the next morning, you kind of go, Jesus, that really happened last night, and you just want to go and experience it again. But that's what it takes to take down such a great county like Kilkenny. They test you in every way, and you have to come with everything and every last inch of energy to get yourself over the line, whether it be an All-Ireland final, an All-Ireland semi-final, to overcome Kilkenny. And we seen it again yesterday, what it took, the effort it took from Tipperary to get over the line. And it took to the closing stages, the last second, a last puck of the ball, a last clearance off the line by Robert Doyle. Robert Doyle, of all the people, who had his Nicky Quaid moment yesterday. And it was just a game that ebbed and flowed, had everything. And it was, as I just touched on, it was a privilege to be there, and an even bigger privilege to be able to commentate on it with Marty Morrissey.
Colin, did you make any sounds like that when that goal went into the top left corner?
No, I suppose over the years there'd be a bit of detachment, but in front of me, I didn't realise John was as vocal as that. But in front of me, Shane McGrath, the former Tipperary midfielder and a great analyst, and he was part of the commentary team with RTE yesterday, was in front of us, and when the goal went in, he was on his feet, and he was beside Henry Shefflin, who obviously probably had a different reaction, but it was a stunning goal. There's no doubt about that. To be able to get a shot away in that tight of space, that's phone box. Mm-hmm. That's Joe Canning at the end of the 2017 All-Ireland semi-final against Tipperary from out at the sideline. How he managed to find the room and to be able to manoeuvre his stick to be able to, like, I'm sure you appreciate, John, the difficulty in that split second to be able to make that connection without being hooked or without being. It's phenomenal.
Was it a short grip or?
It was. He appeared to move his hands in midstream and just he completely changed the way. I think he changed the way he gripped that. Yeah. But to beat Owen Murphy now in those goals, you remember the save from Owen Murphy from Peter Duggan a couple of years ago. This is Owen Murphy now, and okay, Owen was taken for a couple of goals in the first half, came back and made a great save. Yeah. But to beat Owen Murphy from that distance with that number of Kilkenny players around you, it's just phenomenal. Obviously, the Canning free. Or the Canning point at the end of the 2017 All-Ireland semi-final. And actually Jason Ford scored one on the Hogan stand side just before that. And Oisin O'Donoghue was involved in the interception for that as well. So it had a really, really big impact. But that Canning score was just whipped away in 2017. No room, no time to take it. And very similar here. But you probably had three of the biggest moments of the 2025 Hurling Championship all in that last 5 minutes, because you had the O'Donoghue goal. Then you had the Noel McGrath point that wasn't. And obviously we will talk about that. Yeah. And then you had that magnificent block off the line by Robert Doyle, who has been one of the stories of Tipperary's championship, has come into the team this year. And he's looked to the manor born. I mean, he's in place of Cahill Barrett, who some controversy that Cahill Barrett was left off the squad at the beginning of the year. And Robert Doyle comes in and he smooths over, and he's been fantastic this year for Tipperary in his first year, as many of the Tipperary players have. So those three moments all distilled into that last frantic 6 minutes. It's quite unbelievable that the way that has played out.
Yeah, one of those on their own is enough for us to talk about for 2 weeks. But we'll come to all the controversies. I want to talk about Tip's revival first. Before we do that, our GA podcast coverage is with thanks to AIB. AIB is at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county, and in 2025 they're celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championships. With this year's championship turning out to be one of the most competitive in years, AIB is more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. Check out #TheToughest4More. So this is Lazarus-like from Tipperary as a county, John, because obviously they win it in 2019 and then they just go away for 5 years. Quarter-final 2020, lost to Galway. 2021, quarter-final, lose to Waterford. Group stages come back in 2022, play 4, lose 4. 2023, quarter-final, lose to Galway. 2024, group stage, played 4, 1-0. They drew with Waterford, so they don't even go to the group again. Noel McGrath said afterwards, we were sitting at home watching those big days for the last 5 years, didn't even get up to Croke Park for one of these big matches in the championship. How has this happened? Like, nobody saw this coming, surely.
Absolutely not. And I suppose, Jesus, if they were to get over the line in 2 weeks' time, I would rank it as probably one of the greatest achievements within the game. And it just goes to show you how much of a remarkable job Liam Cahill and his management team have done in, I wouldn't say in such a short space of time, but in a short period of 12 months. I mean, you've got to take yourself back to where they were 12 months ago. Getting hammered by Cork, the teams that they're going to play in 2 weeks' time, in their home venue, in Thurles, getting outnumbered by the Cork support by possibly, I'd say, 10-1. And here they are now, 12 months later, in an All-Ireland final, have momentum, are starting to get a bit of consistency behind them, winning games, and they're in a really, really good place going into this final. And it's just a massive, massive testament to Liam Cahill, because no one, I don't even think the Tipperary supporters would have foreseen this happening in such a short space of time. I'd say maybe the objective probably was to get out of Munster. But if you would have told any Tipperary supporter back last year, even the start of the year, January, February, that Tipperary will be one match away from winning Liam McCarthy, I think they would have said you are whatever you were smoking, stop smoking, because I don't think I don't think they would have believed it, and I most certainly don't think they would have thought it was possible. But let me tell you, they're 73, 74 minutes away from doing it, and look, it's going to be a big ask, and we'll probably delve into it next week, and I think they're in a great place going into the final. And you think of that they're coming up against Cork, who on the last 3 occasions have beaten them comprehensively. Last year's fixture in Thurles, the league final, and the Munster round robin. But all that has to happen is they just have to get it right on one day, and Cork just have to be a small bit percentage off, and who knows what could happen. But and I even take it back to that game, when Tipperary beat Cork, or when Cork beat Tipperary in that Munster round robin game, and Darren McCarty was sent off, and the game was up for him after 20 minutes. The easiest thing for him that day was to throw in the towel, and they didn't. They kept going to the end, kept fighting to the end. And I remember actually back a couple of podcasts saying it to Varney, actually saying it to Eddie Brennan, that they will get rewarded for that kind of mindset to keep going to the final whistle, and that becomes a habit. That just doesn't happen. That becomes a habit, and it became a habit up in Ennis. Kept fighting to the final whistle, and they got the win up there. And again, they were able to call on that kind of character and resilience yesterday to keep going to the end, keep fighting to the end. And I think they got their just rewards yesterday. I think they're fully deserving winners, and I think they're fully deserving that they're going to be in the final in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah,
and you really have to attribute quite a bit of this to Liam Cahill. I've listened to a lot of his games that I would have covered, and the message coming across all year, after league games, after championship games, was always a reflection back to where they were and how they had to reset themselves with honesty. And the first point of it was, last year was an embarrassment to them. That's embarrassment to their county. They had let everybody down, and they haven't been afraid to say that. That's coming from Liam Cahill himself, who brings that honesty and that sense of rawness too sometimes in his delivery. And you can imagine that's the message he's putting across to his players, and has consistently, because they've repeated it too. Jake Morris has said it. I heard Brian O'Mara referencing last year just wasn't good enough. And Jake Morris and Liam Cahill have mentioned last year's All-Ireland minor final against Kilkenny, when they went out to 13 players, and, to quote Gerlach Nan, fought on their backs to go and win that after extra time. So they carried numerical disadvantage for so long in that game and came out on the right side. And Liam Cahill said, coming out of that game, absolutely delighted for Tipperary hurling and Tipperary, but also embarrassed about ourselves that we have to take our cue from those young men, 16, 17-year-olds. And they have done. And the manifestation, as John points out, for hanging in Páirc Uí Chaoimh earlier in the year, the manifestation was those last 10 minutes when they went 2 points down with a numerical disadvantage. Darren McCarthy's off. And that spirit that they brought has been something they have been fostering and generating in the county in the off-season. They made some hard calls with their squad, and they've always had this front and centre that we let everybody down this year. It wasn't good enough. Looking in the mirror, all of those phrases, but they've been consistent about it. And here they are in an All-Ireland final now. So it's a great turnaround from where they were, but it's been led by Liam Cahill through that, as I said, honesty and rawness that he produces.
Yeah, well, I think those words are obviously evident in the team as well, and the attitude of a team reflects the leadership. And I always think of Liam Cahill at the end of last year being asked, "Are you going to step down?" And this is some turnaround for him personally as well, never mind Tipperary as a whole county.
Well, look, it was an obvious question when you're after only drawing one draw in 4 Munster Championship games. Of course, you're going to be asked that question, and the journalist Shane Brophy was right to answer that in that respect. And Liam Cahill gave his answer, but there and then you could see he wanted to take this on and he wanted to turn it around, and from there he has done. So there's a lot to admire in how he addresses it, I think, and I've felt that all year about him, that he has laid it out there. He hasn't sugarcoated last year or cushioned it in any way, and all his players are on that same wavelength as well and have been.
Okay, controversies. Let's go. Scoreboard first up. So the scoreboard was wrong. Like, it affected the game, no doubt about that. The GA said it is investigating what happened. Obviously, Noel McGrath's point wasn't given, but it was given on the scoreboard in the stadium and on RT's broadcast column. You reckon it wasn't on the BBC broadcast of it?
I'm not entirely sure. I think I've heard that. I just haven't looked back at the BBC coverage.
Can I come in here for a minute? Because I was doing the radio, right, and I had the right score, right. I had the right score. I had it. Jordan Malloy was going through. I had it 3 points down. I was saying in my own mind, right, keep bringing it on, and try and work the goals for 3 points down. He elected to put the ball over the bar, and I said in my own mind, right, I think he brought it back to 2.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying, was the scoreboard wrong in Croke Park?
Yeah.
Or was it both the scoreboard and the TV coverage or the RT TV coverage was wrong?
Both.
Both were wrong.
So, and because I watched that back then as well, John, because you did have it right. Because then after Malloy put it over, you were saying there's 2 in it, despite what the scoreboard was saying. And I've been thinking about this because I don't want to attribute any blame at all, obviously. To to Kilkenny players or management, because, you know, on one hand, I am thinking, do you know when that happens? It happens in games sometimes where the scoreboard's wrong, and you just do the math in your own head, like you were doing on radio. You're like, well, there's 2 in it instead of 3.
But this is my point. I've been there before, even at club level, club matches, where, you know, a score mightn't go up on the board, but you know it in the back of your mind that, right, we're 2 points down. So I'm sure that the Kilkenny players knew that they weren't 4 points down; they were 3 points down. And what I would love to hear is, and we probably didn't hear enough of it in the aftermath of the match, was the Kilkenny players talking about it, or Derek Ling. We didn't find out off of them that, you know, that their opinions on it, that, oh, you know, by the way, we thought we were 4 points down. But I know what I mean. Now it's easy for me because I'm up in the gantry and I'm looking down. But I'm sure now. I asked a Tipperary supporter. I was up in Carrick-on-Shore today, and he was at the match, and I met him in the shop, and he said, I was at the match and I thought we were 4 points up, but it goes back to one umpire waved it wide, and then the other umpire put his hand up to catch a ball, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So and then the score went up, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I'd love to find out, you know, and we probably won't know now because, you know, in the immediate aftermath, why wasn't the question asked or posed to some of the Kilkenny players or the management on the scoreline at that stage? You know?
John, Derek Ling was asked that in the press conference afterwards, and his response was, "What did you think at the time?" He says, "I thought we were 3 down." Now, I would have assumed that meant that he thought there were 3 down after the Jordan Malloy point, that they were going by the scoreboard, because the natural tendency of almost everybody in the ground is to look at the scoreboard. Yeah. Very, very few people actually look at the umpires waving the flags.
And there were a lot of scores in the last 10 minutes or so. And sort of the puck out went out within seconds. So I can imagine how frantic it is.
And it is an issue in hurling, and it's becoming a bit of an issue in football as well, that the speed of the recycle of the puck outs and the kick outs, but certainly in hurling, and the ball is fizzing so fast in the air and coming through, and there's obviously the setting up by the goalkeeper to get the play moving so quickly. Referees barely have time to take stock. 2 years ago, the Offaly Carlow Joe McDonagh Cup final, the score was recorded wrong. There was two scores a score on either side. Didn't make any difference to the result, but it has been recorded wrong because officials in Croke Park went through the tape of that, and they presented the evidence to the match officials to say that, look, this score is wrong here. And it was never changed. It was in the referee's report as a certain score. So it's happened a few times that scores have been recorded wrong. Normally, they're corrected on the scoreboard quite quickly. In this case, it didn't happen. We were looking at it, and I have it written down as a wide. Then I crossed it off to say, well, in some way, this must have been a point. But there was no waving of the flag that they would have put up that flag. And because the flag has to go up, they're not there as ornaments, the flags. They're there to signal this is a score. There was no Hawkeye intervention.
No.
So the assumption was made, if the scoreboard remains 421, that somewhere there's been communication to say, no, this is a score, but maybe they omitted to put the flag up. But a flag has to go up to register a score. Ultimately, it's what is in the referee's notebook. But it definitely impacted the game because Owen Cody had an opportunity after that. Now, Owen Cody maybe has a tendency to go for goals from quite a distance out. But I'm quite sure if he was only 3 points down and 4 points down, moved to the side, off his left, he's a chance of a score there. Jordan Malloy gets the next one. Maybe the play doesn't follow that way. That's the other thing. Yeah. Things can change. But if that Jordan Malloy point presents itself after a Cody point, and then that last opportunity, Kilkenny are only a point behind at that stage. So John Donnelly shot over the bar, and we're looking at extra time. And Tipperary not having an extra player because Darren McCarthy, that red card, remains an extra time. So you can't really underestimate the influence that this potentially had. We say potentially because we don't know if had Cody pointed, would the puck out have gone long and changed things.
But it changed the game no matter what. Like, so
it changed the game.
It's not an argument because I've seen some people say, oh, well, Tipperary would have played differently as well if the score was different, which is true. But again, you're just confirming that the game changed because the scoreboard's wrong.
Yeah, and there is a possibility that Kilkenny would have sought long-range shots to try and close a 2-point gap. In those closing stages, and may well have got there. So there is that potential that the game could have veered off in a different direction, and certainly possibility of extra time.
Yeah. What do you think will potentially play out then?
I think it's in the referee's notebook as 420 to 30. Tipperary declared victors. I don't think there's any way of overturning this, John.
Can I ask, because the most annoying thing for me is, why was it confirmed so quickly afterwards? So the GA came out, confirmed the score. Why did they do that? What was it based on? And what was the rush to confirm
straight away there were calls and inquiries to various officials, and the word that came back is the scoreline is as it is.
So they said it was 3 in it, and then that's what they confirmed afterwards.
They confirmed 421. Initially 421, not 30. But then it became clear that Noel McGrath point couldn't have been a point. There was no way that could have been a point or accounted for. It was wrong. So the referee confirmed that the score was actually 420 to 030. And that goes into his report, and that becomes the recorded score. And it won't change.
Yeah. Controversy number 2, red cards. The red card that was given, Darren McCarthy. 2 yellow cards. Where did you stand on this one, John?
For me, I don't think it was a red card. Yellow card. The first one, most certainly yes. But the second one, I think common sense has to prevail, and I think within the GA as a whole, from the top down, I think it's something that's probably. It's not being used enough for me, common sense. And seemingly, if common sense does prevail within the GA, common sense seems to get punished. And I just feel it was. I don't think there was an intent there to hurt him. And look, by the letter of the law, James Owens is probably saying to himself, "Look, I've assessors in the stand now. looking at me now and watching on, and I'll be getting a rap on the knuckles now during the week if I don't give a yellow card. But I even go back to my time. The common sense approach by the likes of Barry Kelly, Brian Gavin, they'd just give you a warning and say, "Hey, look, one more time, and you'll be going." And I just feel, it's disappointing. It could add a major bearing on the match, but even the common sense, of James, officiating this match, considering 6 years ago the Richie Hogan sending off, albeit it's 6 years ago, it's still fresh. Like the lads who appoint the referees for these big matches, why didn't common sense prevail in that outcome as well, where they could say to themselves, well, right, James, you're getting an All-Ireland semi-final, but you know what? We're not gonna put you in a position where you might find yourself in a couple of difficult position throughout the match. Considering what happened 6 years ago, you know what? We're going to give you the Cork Dublin game, and Johnny Murphy we're going to give Johnny Murphy the Kilkenny Tipperary match. I don't know what. In the immediate aftermath, two red cards. Does that mean he's going to miss the final, or is he okay for the final column? Or
I understand. Well, if it's the same category of offence, which it's not, the suspension would have doubled. But there's no suspension for 2 yellow cards. He just missed the rest of the game. So therefore, there is no doubling of that suspension. It's a different category of offence. So Darren McCarthy, my understanding is he's okay.
Yeah, well, that's great, because at the time, we were hearing that, it's 2 red cards, 2 red cards in the one championship campaign.
Well, his initial red card, John, in Cork was a straight red card. It was a different category of offence. He served a 1-match ban for that, and there's no suspension here, even though they don't double for unless they're the same categories.
Back in the day, there'd been a wall star for this type of carry on now as well.
Yeah. I thought, I have to say, John, I thought both yellows were justified. I think there's a duty of care there that players have to really. Owen Murphy's reaction was instant. He was hurt, he was caught. I don't think you can have that in the game. I also thought the first one on Paddy Deegan. I think the duty of care and the common sense should be with Darren McCarthy in that regard, in that he shouldn't be leaving his hurling there in the knowledge that he's on the yellow card. No. I don't think you can be loose and fast with the hurl like that. He's on a yellow card. Yeah. He must be careful. He must not put himself in a position where he's given that referee, James Owens, a decision to make around that. And the other thing is, Tipperary were actually trying to get him off the pitch. Liam Cahill said this afterwards. They're trying to get Oisin O'Donoghue on and Darren McCarthy off. Darren McCarthy was off the freeze at this stage. Jason Ford was on them, so it probably made sense for Tipperary. He's on a yellow. Let's remove him. So he leaves his hurling there.
The yellow card that Paddy Deegan received. Are you saying that was the yellow card?
No, I think that was red.
Oh, Paddy Deegan
didn't get a yellow, but I thought
Carey
looking back on it,
card.
yeah, Michael Carey got the yellow for that. But actually, Paddy Deegan makes contact with the head there.
Oh, it was I think the linesman, I don't know what he's looking at. We just see the back of his head, but he's definitely in view.
They obviously missed it. I think they'd look back on that again and deal with that differently.
Mikey Carey looked delighted to be getting a yellow card on behalf of Paddy Deegan's red card offence. He was like, "Yeah, I'll take this one on the chin for the team."
But great credit has to go to the Tipperary management for moving quickly on taking Darren McCarthy off the freeze and putting Jason Ford on the freeze. And we actually seen it in the Dublin game, lads. When Andrew Dunphy, he got the yellow card, and straight away, I think there was only 13, 14 minutes on the clock. They whipped him out straight away. And it's nearly gone down the road where you're going to have to be looking, right, if one of your forwards now is on a yellow card, you've nearly got to be thinking the same. Well, the way lads committing the tackles, trying to get turnovers now, you've nearly got to be thinking the same, right? If one of your forwards gets a yellow card early doors, you've nearly got to be thinking, right, we got to get him out of there, and not take the chance.
As it happened, Darren McCarthy went and scored a goal and set up a goal on a yellow card, so he was playing very well in that first half, as that entire
Yeah.
Tipperary full forward line were. But he did drift probably a little bit out of the game. A few of the frees maybe sapped his confidence. Look, it's his first time in there hitting frees in Croke Park. You look at TJ Reid and the countless number of times he's hunched over a free. I mean, it's just methodical with TJ at this stage. So it's not an easy thing. And the wind swirled, and there was quite a wind in there yesterday. So difficult. Jason Ford has been there before, and he's come out the right side of it. But at that stage, they were trying to get him off the pitch.
Yeah.
And then he leaves the hurling. Liam Cahill said he had no complaints about it.
Yeah, Willie Connors sort of got lucky as well. There seemed to be an off the ball incident too. He sort of swung the leg, trip/kick, got away with it. Nobody picked it up. But just we're talking about Darren McCurry being sent off. How that impacted the game then? So Derek Ling actually said they had to send it off, and unfortunately they upped the tempo, which is incredible to think that it actually worked in Tipperary's favour and against Kilkenny, who with 14 men really didn't make the most of it. They were playing these short puckouts to Richie Reid. And
They were very clever in how they structured their team in the immediate aftermath of Tipperary after the sending off. At times they'd only one up top, sometimes two up top, and they just brought that middle third into a war zone. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll probably delve into it next week. I think, that's probably something they might look at and say, right, we might go with two up top. We might flood that middle third with bringing an extra body back to protect in front of the full back line. But, it was very, very good management. They were quick. And I suppose that's they've all these things thought out now before the match, that if we go down to 13 men, if we go down to 14 men, this is how we're going to line up. But I thought they were very, very clever in how they structured the team,
What do you think, Colin?
I made this point after the Dublin Limerick quarter final and after Chris Crummey's red card. A few years ago, one of the main reasons that the black card in hurling didn't come in was because delegates at one of the congresses argued that the impact of numerical disadvantage going down to 14, even for a period of 10 minutes, that the impact in hurling is too great.
Yeah.
It would shut out a game on a team if they lost a player, and there was evidence presented. And now we look at the quarter final, Limerick out, Kilkenny out, despite both having that advantage. And all you can think of is how those that are left behind, those 14s, lifted so much. You saw Noel McGrath in those closing stages. We mentioned him in the build-up to the goal. Yeah. He also won a free back. And John, you're going to have to take a trademark on him for a patent for some of those fists in the air that he was delivering after winning the free in some of those moments. I thought that was always your thing, and that you had that.
But lads, I mean, you talk of Hoggy, you talk about TJ. I mean, Noel McGrath has to come into the category now of those two in what the three of them are actually doing. And it nearly, with all the one-handed flicks, the tennis season is in, it would nearly remind you, the three of them, that it's kind of like Nadal, Federer and Djokovic, the three of them, like, the three old stalwarts. They just keep going, keep delivering. And they just, they're nearly getting better with age. But he was just brilliant when he came on.
Noel McGrath, it's almost as if he's just playing the game at a different pace. Every time you look at him on the ball, it's just everything settles and calms. And his delivery, John, I would say he's one of the greatest passers of the ball over 50, any range really. I think he's one of the greatest passers of the ball, and his vision is as good as anyone I think I've seen.
He'd remind me of the soccer player, the Croatian lad, Modric. Just, he could see a pass, or his brain was thinking his brain was a second or two ahead of every other player on the pitch. And Noel McGrath reminds me of Modric, and Modric just kept getting better with age, and Noel McGrath is no different. And just even bring him in at 50 minutes, when Tipperary were coming under pressure, to bring in that calming figure and the experience. And he just led the line there for the last 22, 23 minutes. He was brilliant.
And he gets to play in an All-Ireland final now. I think it's his 8th All-Ireland final against opponents who aren't Kilkenny, because for the last 7, 09, 10, 11, 14, there was 2 games, 16 and 19, Tip's opponents in All-Ireland finals have been Kilkenny. So this is something different. But what a way in his latter years to be able to assist this emerging Tipperary team, for Noel McGrath to hang in there and have that moment yesterday, and have that moment in Ennis, because you have to go back to Ennis and say, in the journey of this Tipperary team, that was a really pivotal moment. So for him to be able to lend his assistance in the way that he does, the bridge between what is effectively going to be the past and the future Tipperary, and we're going to see Tipperary come, because there have so many players now to integrate. But for him to be able to provide this bridgehead now, it'll certainly be one of the most satisfactory passages of time in his career.
Is there anything in Kilkenny's future here, John? Because I was a little bit disappointed by them. Even look at Darren McCarthy's goal, but they're going so well to start, and then 2 fullbacks go out for the ball, and McCarthy's just in behind. Then that sets off 2-2 in a row for Tipperary, when Kilkenny were kind of coasting. And then there just seemed to be a lack of punch in the forward line. Or I don't know, was it power or raw pace that they were missing? I know Cody's just coming back, but I remember doing a show with Eddie Brennan after the league game. Tipperary beat them, and he used the word peripheral with Kilkenny, because they were just they weren't going at their men, whereas Tipperary were happy to do it. Cork were happy to do it. This is obviously what we're seeing now in the game, and there was a stage where it was like, oh, look at Limerick scoring 30 points, and that was the way the game had gone. And now it seems like it's gone back to get through those defenders and get in on goal, whereas I don't know what that looks like for Kilkenny going forward.
Go on, Colin. Yeah,
I think there's an issue, and a big issue, facing Kilkenny over the depth that they have.
You only made 3
substitutes, and the last of those substitutions was in the 70th minute, and
the other one after 65.
1 to 15, Kilkenny are strong. That 15 that Kilkenny had out there, if they're all playing to form, and some of them didn't play to form, some of them in attack, you would probably expect more.
Yeah.
But 1 to 15, they are strong. They tend to unravel a little bit quicker after that when you go down through the numbers, by comparison to all the stronger teams up there. Probably have more depth, and they're now facing a situation that they haven't ever been before since they won their first All-Ireland title at the beginning of the last century. Next year will be 11 years without an All-Ireland title for Kilkenny, which has never happened before. They've had 2 10-year periods where they haven't had an All-Ireland, but 10 years is the greatest gap. Now they're going to 11. Underage is improving. They're still getting to finals. Obviously, Tipperary beat them in this year's under-20. The minor team last year, we've already spoken about that loss. And there are encouraging signs of their academy under Michael Fennelly. I know Tommy Walsh last week was speaking very positively about that. But between now and then, that gap may actually extend, because obviously TJ Reid has a decision to make. He played well yesterday. He was still going hard at the end. But he will be 38 next season, not saying he keeps himself in great shape. And his form would suggest he can continue to go. Right now, his form. But 6 and 9 months' time, that's when he'll know whether he's really ready to step on. His form would suggest yes, but they really have to add to that squad. And their 2022 All-Ireland under-20 team that beat Limerick in the final, they haven't really got anything from that, and this is 3 years on from that. So those players are 22, 23. You look at other 22, 23-year-olds in Tipperary, and even in Cork and Limerick, they're pushing through now much, much harder than that Kilkenny team.
But the championship, we'll go back to it, as the championship structure suits them until they get another crop of players coming through, and where they probably will have a really good side that are good enough to kick on and win an All-Ireland, as you just alluded to there, Colin. That's probably a bit away, but I could be 85-90% sure that Kilkenny will be rocking up to an All-Ireland semi-final this time next year. Can I say with the same confidence that Tipperary will be in an All-Ireland semi-final? I would be saying, regardless of what happens in 2 weeks' time, I would be only thinking that they have a 50% chance of getting out of Munster. And that's unfortunately, that's where we're at with the structure. You look at the structure, lads. I mean, the last 6 years now, we've 4 all Munster affairs in the All Ireland final within the last 6 years. You have to go back to 2015 where you had an All Leinster final. So until the structures change, Kilkenny are still going to be in an All Ireland semi-final possibly for the next 2 to 3 years. And I think, you'll see yourself, regardless of who they have out on the day, they'll still always be difficult to beat in an All Ireland semi-final. And as I touched on, they will come again. They had a good minor team last year. They were extremely unlucky in this year's minor. Were played in a great game against Waterford down in Wexford Park. So they have some good players coming through.
John, would you be advocating structural change? So on the back of that, what you perceive as an imbalance, would you be advocating a change? Would that impact on the Munster Hurling Championship?
Whether it impacts or not, I mean, I'm only speaking up for my own county. You look at my own county, Waterford, right? You take a while before a ball is even thrown, and I keep banging the drum of this. Before a ball is even thrown in next year, right? We're playing the 2 All Ireland finalists. We're playing the All Ireland winners last year, and we're playing the 4 in a row All Ireland winners in Limerick. So how do you deem that fair? That what we face into next year, in contrast to what, say, Wexford or say Galway, who are probably going to be going through a few lean years, probably have to win 1 or 2 matches, and they'll find themselves in an All Ireland quarter final, 1 match away from being in an All Ireland final. And if I hear this thing again, look, Jesus, if you lose 3 matches, you deserve to be out. Yeah, but you're losing 3 matches to possibly the best 3 teams in the country. So from my own perspective, from Waterford's perspective, how can we grow in the next couple of years, when we are stuck in a cutthroat Munster Championship? Well, as I touched on a couple of weeks ago, if Waterford win the Leinster Championship every year, there's a good chance that we will be in an All Ireland quarter final every year, So I just think something has to give, and it might be actually serving Kilkenny any good in the long run either, because they're not battle hardened going into these All Ireland semi-finals where they're coming up against teams that are battle hardened. Clare were battle hardened last year. Tipperary were battle hardened this year. So it might be serving Kilkenny any good either. And I go back to it. I still think that you would have a very competitive Munster Championship if you had the top four in Leinster and have the crisscross, as I touched on a couple of weeks ago, where the 2 All Ireland or the 2 Munster finalists, they get home advantage, and the 2 Leinster finalists get home advantage for their quarter finals. And so we've seen it with the All Ireland quarter finals. There was no Limerick supporters travelled to Dublin. There was a small attendance between Galway and Tipperary, and I touched on it. We are onto something having these home and away matches, and I think we should bring it into the All Ireland quarterfinals going forward for the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's a 2-code problem. Like it does go across football and hurling. I think just having these provincial championships connected to the All Ireland it doesn't make sense anymore. It's not fair. Like I wouldn't even look at it, John, from say Waterford point of view. How are they supposed to develop? It's just the equality of it. Like whenever about their development as well, but it just doesn't make sense. Like, and you could have competitive, rich championships separate. You just tell people. Like I always look at the Nations League now in soccer. You just told people that's a competition. There's a trophy. It matters. And everybody cares about it suddenly. Like,
but you're honest, right? But it's the first time in 6 years that Tipperary and Kilkenny, 2 powerhouses in our game. I mean, that's unheard of. Like that Tipperary and Kilkenny would have to wait that long to meet in a fixture in the championship. And even take a Waterford and Wexford. I played against Wexford up in Noel Park in 2003, one of the greatest atmospheres they ever played in. Jesus, wouldn't it be great if Waterford had to even go down to Wexford Park on a Saturday evening and just say it was an All Ireland quarter final? I think that's where we need to get back to going forward into the future,
Yeah, well, you mentioned it already, but awaiting Tipperary in the final. Cork 7-2 26. We're talking about goals being important. They had 3 goals after 13 minutes in their semi-final against Dublin. There was 9 in it at that stage. And I think the difference here was that Cork just had the mentality, almost like Limerick did the work for them. They went through the wall first, got their heads bloody, and Cork were not coming up to take Dublin for granted. You could even see from the throw-in, Tim O'Mahony was right up for it. They came for a battle. The fans came for a battle. I mean, the whole Cusack stand and Canal End was plastered in red. I mean, Cork were up for this, and it played out that way. Even though Cian O'Sullivan scored straight away for Dublin, which got us going, even though Dublin sort of had a bit of a 10 minutes in the first half and made a game of it, Cork were not letting their foot off the gas there.
Cork are relentless when they get the bit between their teeth in a game. I mean, you saw that 15-minute period in the league final against Tipperary, and they did it again then against Tipperary in the round robin game back at the same venue a few weeks later. I just felt, and we can always be wise after the event, but in this case, I always felt that the 4-week break was going to really suit Cork for a reset. And just to bring it back down, because they had a lot of big days, including the league final played out in front of a packed Páirc Uí Chaoimh. All of their games, albeit now capacities in Ennis, it's 20,000, but they're playing those games in these atmospheres. They're huge games every time. And then the Munster final itself. And it's still an emerging Cork team, even though a lot of them have played in 2 All-Ireland finals. So just to draw a breath after that and get those 4 weeks to reset, I thought it was invaluable to them. And obviously they really went after Dublin for goals. And John mentioned it was the best weekend display between Jason Ford's goal, Alan Conley's goal, Tim O'Mahony's goal, and then the Horgan and Brian Hayes flicks to create goals. It was the best one-handed weekend I think I've ever seen. But Cork can be ruthless with goals. They can really scent blood in that respect. And spurred on by an atmosphere, when did we ever see a game involving Dublin and Croke Park when a Dublin team, albeit in hurling, but is outnumbered? I mean, this Cork movement of people is like no other in the GA, and I include Dublin at their peak in football back in the 2000s and maybe back to the 70s in that regard. But this current Cork movement of people is just phenomenal.
Can I ask on that, why is hype such a dirty word in GAA? It feels like it's such a trigger, and then Cork people are taking offence to people saying, well, the hype train's left the station. And of course it has. Like, they're flying, they're on the crest of a wave, they're winning all around them, and like you said, they've brought the people with them.
There's just a new generation of young Cork people have not witnessed it, and it's great.
Beautiful.
It's great.
Why
it is
is
great.
that? But own it as well.
As someone remarked to me up in Croke Park yesterday, it's nearly becoming fashionable to go and watch Cork hurlers now, whether it be down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, whether it be in Thurles, whether it be in Croke Park, with a younger generation. And I mean the younger generation from, say, 16 up to 24 to 26 years of age. And I mean, lads, to bring 60,000 people to Croke Park, I mean, and look, you can talk all you like, saying, geez, they have the population and they have the clubs. I mean, that is just insane.
And John, they're bringing
60,000 people.
They are bringing them obviously from Cork, 2.5 hour drive. Although I believe it was 4 or maybe even 5 hours through the tolls, the various tolls. It was backing up for miles on the road up early last Saturday. So what a movement of people to be able to relocate that amount. Obviously, they're not all from Cork and everywhere else. And Cork's a big county, so they're coming from everywhere there. But to bring that mass, that number of people on a Saturday afternoon up to Dublin to support that is just phenomenal.
I think it's incredible. I think every time I see a journalist mention the word hype, I see their mentions and people coming in and saying, oh, typical you. It's like, yeah, what? I own that. If that was my county, I'd be so proud of it. Just been like, well, we're right behind this.
I suppose they're afraid of derailing in some way, but I think players are well insulated from all of that. They know they've been to 2 All-Ireland finals. They know their favourites and they accept that. They've beaten Tipperary twice this year, albeit Darragh McCarthy was off for the entire game in the championship. But they've beaten Tipperary twice. They're entitled to favouritism. They could well have won last year's All-Ireland final. So they're so close. And they deserve and are entitled to favouritism, and they should embrace it, and I think they will.
Yeah. John, I need your expert opinion then. So, Columns mentioned the two standout goals. I think it was goal 1 and goal 3 are the standout ones. So, Brian Hayes, the flick on to Diarmuid Healy, who sort of does that little punch into the ground into Dalton. It was a lovely little pass inside, who gives it back to Hayes. He's going on the run. And then just the composure to sit it on the stick again rather than just ramming it when he's in position. And then the Alan Connolly goal. So, the camera from behind the goal shows Tim O'Mahony just standing around in midfield. And he just makes a run for corner forward, and the ball comes over the top to him, and the movement along the end line, the little sort of messy come on, take it off me, and then he pulls it back, and obviously Connolly's gone with an overhead almost, like you're mentioning, Roger Federer slammed down then as well. It was just gorgeous stuff. As a goal scorer, what would you say was your pick of those two?
My one would be the one where Hoggy with the little angle flick to was it Conley?
Tim O'Mahony. That wasn't the second half. It was an absolutely beautiful.
No. This one was the first one. Hayes,
all right.
An incoming, was it Alan Conley? Horgan flicked it, kind of an angle flick. Ball went into Conley. Conley kind of one-handed flick into Brian Hayes, and Brian Hayes got the ball, stuck it in the back of the net. But that was probably my favourite one, but their movement was just incredible. And Colin just touched on it there. You know, they had that ruthless streak the weekend where they weren't letting Dublin off the hook. They weren't saying themselves, right, we're going to ease up here now and we're going to just kind of get comfortable now and get ready for the final. No, they said, right, we're going to kick on. We're going to lay down a marker. We're going to send out a message now that we mean business going into this final. And even, you know, the lads coming off the bench, the impact off the bench, the energy. I mean, if you're a Dublin player, you're seeing Lahan, you're seeing Kingston, you're seeing Robbie O'Flynn, you're seeing Jack O'Connor, legs in the big wide open space at Croke Park. You're saying, oh no. But yeah, I just thought they were superb. They can just hurt you all ends up, and that's going to be the biggest head scratcher now for Liam Cahill and his management team going into this final. Do we sit someone back in the pocket? If you do, their half forward line can hurt you. Their midfield can hurt you because they've legs coming through midfield. If you drop your half back line back, or if you drop your half forward line back, you know their half forwards are able to pick you off as well. So yeah, they're just so beautiful to watch on the eye when they are in full flow. And I just think even going into this final, you know, both managers, you know, Pat Ryan, really, really good guy, and Liam Cahill, you know, two really honest guys, two great management teams. And I just think this final is set up beautifully. You know, the demand for tickets now, the scramble for tickets now, it's already at the starting. Best of luck to you trying to get a ticket for that. And I just think, lads, even this could be within the next 10 years, you're talking about Kilkenny, you're talking about other counties, maybe Limerick might come back in the next year or two. But you look at the array of talent that's coming through in Cork and the array of talent coming through in Tipperary. It's a first ever final, but it could be the first of many going forward for the next couple of years, lads.
I think Cork could sell out Páirc Uí Chaoimh for this, and they probably should look at that, really, like put up the big screens.
They probably will.
Yeah. You touched on the dilemma there, John, that Neil O'Callaghan faced. I mean, he said afterwards, like, basically he was thinking, we want to try and win this match, and if we sit back, we're not going to do that. He said afterwards to RTE, what are we here for? Against a team like Cork, if we play a different way, you mightn't concede 7 goals, but you will lose the game. And Colin, I sort of respect it, like, you know, because it probably requires, like, the way they set up, the way they were going for it, maybe once every 20 games they might catch him and might win. But I do feel like what he's saying, they won't win any other way 100% of the time. Whereas they had to try and throw a punch and left themselves exposed. But sure, like, if you know 100% you're going to lose, why would you not just try and hurt them in some way?
And that's what they went after. Just the things that work for them against Limerick didn't repeat here. They put a lot of ball in around John Heatherton, but Cork were able to get a lot of bodies back.
Yeah.
And some of the matchups that Dublin thrived on against Limerick, I mean, Paddy Doyle and Paddy Smith were really, really good against Limerick, 1-to-1 physical battles,
Yeah.
but the movement and speed, Cork were able to pull them out of position. They were constantly rotating and moving, and there is speed in this Cork team. I mean, Brian Hayes, he can really travel. And what a fine hurler he has become.
Yeah.
I think probably the leading candidate right now for hurler of the year, given his entire season. He's been that good.
He's like he has a sandbag on his boss. Like just the way the ball just hits off it and rests on it. The first ball that went into him from Dalton was like a torpedo coming in, but he gets out in front and he wins it, but it just sticks to the bottom of his hurl.
And he's tall and he's rangy, but he's not knocked off balance very, very easily. Oh. He's a very, very good footballer too, and he was a target for AFL at some stage in the past too. But you have to say, Cork football's loss, what a gain for Cork hurling he has become.
Yeah. What did you think, John? I mean, obviously Dublin got 2 nice goals. I don't want to patronise them and say, well, that's a good score that they got. It's not a good score when you're conceding 7-26. I mean, you might say 2-21's good shooting, but it's not when you're losing by 20. Like, that's the reality of it. But like I said, I think this was the only possible way. It sounds silly when you're conceding 7 goals. But if they were going to get any day to get them, like, this is the only way they could have shown up.
Yeah, but I just felt even Andrew Dunphy picking up that yellow card early doors didn't help. Paddy Smith was on a tick. The big one for me, Connor McHugh going off. Then they had to take, I think Brian Hayes came back and was marking Shane Barrett for large parts of that match. So that kind of broke up the dynamism in midfield between Conor Burke and Brian Hayes. But they just couldn't find those pockets of green grass that they were finding, when that they found when they played against Limerick. And look, every time they kind of got back to within kind of 5-6 points, sucker punch, Cork would go up, and if they got any smell of the goal at all, as I touched on, that ruthless streak came, we're going for it. We're going to raise a green flag and we're going to put a dent in that bit of Dublin's confidence. Again, even in the second half, they got it back to 9 points, and I think they got turned over for one of the goals. I think it was Tim O'Mahony's goal in the second half, and I think Paddy Doyle got turned over. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, the gap was out to 12 or 13 points, and I just think the big thing for Dublin going forward now for the next couple of years is I really like the manager. I really, really like the manager. I think they will grow under this manager, but I just think we've seen over the years we've been here before with Dublin where they go and they get a big result and they kind of struggle to follow it up. I don't know what that's down to, why they don't follow it up and can't back up a really good victory with another good victory. And probably you have to go back to probably 2013. Probably 2011 under Dalo, when they were probably kind of had that kind of consistent streak. And I think the Dublin even supporters, they want to get behind a Dublin team, but they want to see a bit more, and they want to see that kind of level of consistency, going forward for the next couple of years before I would say they'll go all in and get behind that team. And that's where they have to go in the next couple of years, where keep getting back to Leinster final, keep getting back to Leinster finals, try and win a Leinster final, and then back it up with a good All-Ireland semi-final performance. And even then again, the following year, go and do the same again. Come with a good Leinster campaign, try and beat a Kilkenny. And even if we were to go up the following year and beat Kilkenny again, I think that's how you would get the Dublin supporters back. No, I wouldn't say back on board, get them on board more. And I think it would give you a great opportunity to grow into the future, Yeah.
Get on the hype train, as we would say about the Cork supporters. That's everything we have. We have our final 2. We have Cork and Tipperary. There's going to be loads of time to build up on that, starting with the Indo-GA back tomorrow. And we have Joe back tomorrow in the hot seat as well. I'll have to chat to Ronan now, see what we're up to for the rest of the week. Thanks a million for listening, and we will chat to you then.
Thanks, Colin.
Thanks, Colin.